Jerry Jones, who now remember, yesterday the NFL's statement was the case is without merit. Here's a quote from Jerry Jones at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. This comes courtesy of USA Today. I can see it's an area, one of many, that we can do better. The area has some good attention. This is obvious if you look through that the league and coaches are trying to improve there. I think the fact it's an issue shows not only the league's willingness to address and do better. The Rooney Rule, I think the fact that it's being discussed is how the Rooney Rule or what drives the Rooney Rule could be better. Look, he didn't put his hand completely in the fire on this, but that is a contrast to Brian Flores' claims are without merit. That's a more realistic view. I mean, it's an acknowledgement that something's wrong. Something's clearly wrong. And the idea that they would come out of the gate saying the case is without merit means whether it's wrong or not, we're going to fight you tooth and nail because we're not going to acknowledge it's wrong. We're going to force you to come after us, and we're going to make it about you. We're going to make your life a living hell in the context of this litigation. They won't say that, but that's the message. We're going to fight you. It's an adversarial process, and we are going to be fully adversarial. You can bet good money on that. So, I don't think Jerry Jones said anything that gives up the farm, so to speak. But I guarantee you he'll be questioned under oath because he's one of the original violators of the spirit of the Rooney Rule. He was hell-bent on hiring Bill Parcells, and he did a perfunctory phone call with Dennis Green to comply with the Rooney Rule, forcing the league to amend it saying, no, sorry, the interview has to at least be, face-to-face. You can't just call the guy on the phone and say, hey, you interested in coming to work for the Cowboys? Yeah, I'm interested. Okay, I'll get back to you. Click. You can't do that to check the box. And that's the problem. There's been way too much box checking. There's been too many efforts to circumvent, and all that is going to be evidence now in the Brian Flores lawsuit. I can go on and on about the examples where there has been effort to circumvent the spirit of the Rooney Rule. That's all going to be relevant evidence to prove. Because, again, no one's going to sit there and say, there is a racial bias when it comes to hiring coaches in the NFL. No one's going to admit to it. So you have to prove it through other evidence. My point is, there's plenty of other evidence. And the stuff from Troy Vincent is the closest thing you're ever going to get to somebody admitting there's a racial bias. Because he kind of did.
Right. Well, yes. And, you mentioned the NFL statement, basically saying that, not basically, I shouldn't say that. The direct quote was that they said that those claims are without merit, right? And I feel like that's an area where we have to remember that the NFL basically works at the behest of its 32-member clubs. So when you have Brian Flores really coming after at least 3-member clubs in that lawsuit, in the Dolphins, the Giants, and in some ways the Broncos, right? That's where you have to have the league really, really push back hard on that, because when you have the league, and the commissioner specifically, like, they work at the behest of the 32 owners. So if Stephen Ross and the Maras and Steve Tisch, right, and then also the Broncos ownership group, and that franchise is about to be sold, but what have you, if they are looking at what's in that lawsuit and they read that and they're like, no, we got to push way back hard against this. That's why I feel like you get the NFL then saying, yeah, these claims are without merit, because why else, or what else would those teams say in order to defend themselves, especially the Giants, who just went through a coaching search and just hired somebody. And, today, even at PFT, we're still writing stories about Brian Daboll's new coaching staff. Well, what else are they going to say? Right? Stephen Ross is being accused of blatantly tanking. What else is he going to say? But these claims are without merit. So that is why that even if the NFL, which really should, properly investigate all of the different claims that are in that lawsuit, you're not just going to come out and say that at that time. I understand why there's a difference between the league and what Jerry Jones is saying at this point.
But the point is, when you say right out of the gates, hours after the suit has been received, that the claims are without merit, that is the equivalent of the middle finger emoji being texted to someone.
That's sure.
What that
yes.
is.
Yes.
And that in and of itself, to a person of average intelligence and goodwill, to see that, you say, that's kind of offensive, that would be your response to something this serious and this historic, to come out right out of the gates a week after They get sued by San Diego on a lawsuit that I think is borderline frivolous because all the statutes of limitations, as far as I can tell, under California law have expired, and their response is, we decline comment. Well, just decline comment on this one too then. You know, they come out and thump their chests when they get their asses kicked later. They thumped their chests about St. Louis and they ended up paying St. Louis $790 million. So maybe it's a good sign for Brian Flores that they took the posture they took. Maybe that's one of the ingredients to the league doing something by way of defending the case that ultimately blows up in its face.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.